Hello dear students, today we are going to start chapter number 12 atoms. The live recorded could not be done, somehow the voice was not there. So I am recording a video for the what we have studied today and I will upload this video only. So let us start the chapter number 12 and the chapter number 12 is atoms. Chapter 12 atoms. What this chapter is all about, you must have studied the structure of atoms in your chemistry classes. Okay, so in chemistry classes you must have studied that so many models of atom have been given from the different scientists, and after one model fails the another model has been given. The first model was given by Thomson and it was plum pudding model, and according to that electrons are according to this model, the electrons are like seeds in a watermelon or plums in a pudding, and that's why it is called plums pudding model. According to it, positive charge is being continuously distributed in an atom and electrons are somewhere in between, randomly in between the positive charges like seeds in a watermelon. But this model could not explain several things like alpha particle. In the alpha particle experiment, it was found that some of the alpha particles are scattered by a larger angle, but scattering of those alpha particles could not be explained by this model. And once again, it could not explain the spectral lines of hydrogen atom or several different atoms. That's why this model was not considered to explain the structure of atom. The second model was based on Rutherford alpha particle scattering experiment. You must have studied those experiments in your chemistry classes. As per this experiment, alpha particles were given a very high amount of kinetic energy, and they are bombarded over a gold foil. What we have observed, that most of the alpha particles passes undeviated. Some of the alpha particles gets deviation from it, and one particle out of 1 lakhs particle was the luckiest one and it retraces its path. Okay, so this was the outcome of Rutherford alpha particle experiment, and out of these outcomes, one very important definition is distance of closest approach. What this distance of closest approach means? Suppose this is the atom and it is its center part, which is further called nucleus. That alpha particle which retraces its path, it goes straight towards the nucleus and then retraces its path. Suppose from this point it returns. So the distance of this point from the center of the nucleus, this distance is called distance of closest approach, right? So how this distance will be calculated? So what is the theory here? That kinetic energy of alpha particle is completely converted into potential energy of alpha particle and the nucleus. So we equate kinetic energy with potential energy, electrostatic potential energy. Kinetic energy will be given then as formula for potential energy is K Q1 Q2 upon R naught. Okay, let us put the value of charges here. So kinetic energy is K, Q1 is 2 into E, because on alpha particle the charge is 2 into E, and on the gold nucleus or nucleus, Z into E. What is Z? Z is atomic number. Atomic number tells us the number of protons. One proton is E charge, and that's why the number of protons Z are there. So total positive charge is Z into E. From here the value of R naught is K 2 Z E square upon kinetic energy. So this is the formula for distance of closest approach. And if we put the values, like kinetic energy to the alpha particle in the experiment is given 5.5 mega electron volt. The value of K you must be knowing, 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton meter square per coulomb square. And then last one is the value of Z. For gold, the value of Z is 79. Anything else? And the value of E. The value of E is 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. If you put all these, then what we get? We get the distance of closest approach approximately equal to 41.3 Fermi meter. So this is the value of distance of closest approach according to the Rutherford alpha particle experiment. Okay. So this is distance of closest approach. I hope it is clear. We have discussed it in the live video, but somehow the recording could not be done, and that's why I am recording this video. Okay. I hope it is clear. So let us move to the next topic, and the next topic is impact parameter. Impact parameter. Impact parameter. What is impact parameter now? Now we are talking about that alpha particle which is not at the center, which is not along the center. Okay, we are talking about that alpha particle which is away from the center. Suppose it is at a distance b, and obviously we know it has been produced some deflection. Let that angular deflection be theta. Is it clear? So this is your nucleus of gold foil, and this is the alpha particle which retraces its path. Is it clear? Now suppose if we talk about the relation between b and theta, if b becomes smaller, then the alpha particle becomes closer to the nucleus, the deflection will be larger. So if b decreases, then theta increases. Suppose that b becomes 0. In that case, theta will become pi, 180 degree. And if b becomes infinity, b becomes very large, then theta becomes 0. So basically b and theta, they are inversely proportional to each other. Okay, they are inversely proportional. Is it clear? So one formula is also there for b, and that formula is b is equal to k ze square cot square theta by 2 upon kinetic energy. This is the formula. Let me check. Kz is square. Okay, good. Kz is square cot square theta by 2 upon kinetic energy. Directly we have to write the formula, and from formula also you can see that cot theta is actually a decreasing function. With increasing value of theta, cot theta decreases. With increasing value of theta, cot theta decreases, and that's why when this theta increases, cot theta decreases, b also decreases. Is it clear? So this is what the impact parameter is. Now as per after the alpha particle experiment, what the outcomes of that alpha particle experiment, what are the outcomes? Let us discuss that. Okay, let us discuss the outcomes of Rutherford atomic model, Rutherford alpha particle experiment, right? So the first outcome was, and it is based on the fact that one alpha particle retraces its path. It says that every atom has a single positive massive central core, and that core is called nucleus. Every atom has a single positive massive central core, and that core is called nucleus. So this is called nucleus concept. Nucleus concept. Second thing is about size of the nucleus. The size of the nucleus is very small. The size of the nucleus is very small. Nucleus size is around 10 to the power minus 15 meter, okay, which is considerably very small in comparison to the size of atom. The size of atom is 10 to the power minus 10 meter, and whereas size of the nucleus, you have seen that the distance of closest approach was there 41.3 Fermi meter. So size of the nucleus is very small in comparison to the size of the atom. Third one is, as per this, electrons revolves around the nucleus in different orbits. Electrons revolve around the nucleus in different orbits, and about how the electron chooses their orbit, how the electrons choose their orbit to revolve, it was not explained, but it is explained that the positive central core is surrounded by negative charge, which is called electron, and electrons are revolving around that nucleus. But this model also could not explain several things, and that's why this model was failed, and this model was not considered anymore. And those failures were, the first failure is, it is believed that when a charge is moving in a circular path, basically it is an accelerated motion, and whenever a charge is in accelerated motion, it radiates electromagnetic wave. Radiation of electromagnetic wave will cause loss of energy, and since electron is orbiting around the nucleus in a circular path, then basically it continuously loses its energy, and that's why the electron will fall in the nucleus after some time following a spiral path. If suppose this is the nucleus and electrons are here, so it is orbiting in this circular path, but what happens? It loses its energy continuously. So the radius of circular path decreases continuously, and after some time following a spiral path, it should fall in the nucleus, but this does not happen. The nucleus or the structure of atom is a stable one, and it does not happen like this, because if this happens, then the structure of atom will be destroyed. The second point is, if electrons are revolving in a circular path, then basically they are continuously emitting the radiation. Okay, continuously they emit electromagnetic wave, and if they continuously emitting electromagnetic wave, then when we talk about spectrum of hydrogen atom, that spectrum is not continuous, it is a line spectrum. Okay, it is not continuous, but since electrons are orbiting in a circular path, so there must be a continuous spectrum, but it is not there. We observe line spectrum. So why those line spectrums are there, that also could not be explained by Rutherford model. So this was all about today's lecture. Let me advance ahead. So let us do something which will be taught tomorrow. Okay, and let us do one more topic today, and that topic is Bohr quantization. Bohr's quantization condition. Bohr quantization condition. What Bohr says that, okay, electrons are revolving in a circular path, but electromagnetic waves can be considered as a particle also, okay, because wave behaves as a particle. So Bohr's theory is something related to that only. What it says that, suppose if we talk about an electromagnetic wave, so electromagnetic wave is like this. Okay, suppose this is the electric field. This part of electric field is the positive one, and this part of the electric field is the negative one. Although the direction is opposite, but again this part is considered positive, this part is considered negative. If we talk about energy of this part, then it will be in this direction. Direction of energy could not be there, but energy is positive. But here the energy is negative. When we add both of them, the energy becomes zero. Is it clear? Somehow we can say that while going on this path, electrons will emit this electromagnetic wave. And if electron will emit this electromagnetic wave, then half of its path, if it is radiating that electromagnetic energy, then again half of its path, it will absorb that energy. It is positive, it is negative. Positive energy, suppose it is absorbing. Negative energy, suppose it is radiating. If it's half of the path, if it is absorbing, then another half of the path, it is radiating the energy. So basically what happens from here, if it starts if it starts with the energy E, then at here also its energy will be E only, because whatever it has absorbed, the same it has radiated also. Okay, Bohr uses this point, and what he said that while moving in an orbit, suppose this is the orbit of electron, so he says that if electrons are absorbing energy in half of its path, then it will radiate energy in half of its path. It is actually the same thing. What I have done, I have made this path come over here and I made this circular. So this one goes half when it is crust, and then other half it is the trough, and this is the central line. This is this line. This line is here. Okay. So basically this circular path is actually equal to this much length. Okay, its circular path must be having this length. If it consists two wavelengths, then suppose it consists two wavelengths, then suppose this is the orbit, and if it consists two wavelength, then what will happen? The wave will be like this: crust, then trough, then crust, then trough. Absorbed, radiated, absorbed, radiated. The total energy becomes 0. So what he says that the circular path of the orbit, that is 2 pi r, must be consisting integral number of wavelengths. Must be consisting integral number of wavelength. Is it clear? 2 pi r is equal to n lambda. This is the main statement of his quantization condition. This is a statement. What is condition we'll talk about later. Okay, so this is the statement that the circular orbit of electron must be consisting integral number of wavelength. Now let us analyze this relation more. So 2 pi r is equal to n lambda. Now lambda can be considered as the wavelength of wave associated with electron. So we can write 2 pi r is equal to n into h upon mv, mass into velocity. R is transferred to that side. Then we have 2 pi is equal to nh upon mvr. Now momentum multiplied by radius becomes linear momentum. Sorry, angular momentum. It comes over here. So mvr is equal to what? nh upon 2 pi. This is called angular momentum, denoted by L. So nh upon 2 pi. This is the Bohr quantization condition. Okay, the angular momentum of electron is actually an integral number of h upon 2 pi, where h is Planck's constant. Okay, and as per this electron chooses its orbit, it will be in the orbit in which its angular momentum is equal to integral number of h upon 2 pi. Suppose it is in the first orbit, value of n should be 1. So the angular momentum of electrons revolving in the first orbit is given by h upon 2 pi. Suppose it is revolving in the second one, then angular momentum of the electrons revolving in the second orbit is given by 2h upon 2 pi. In the third orbit, 3h upon 3 pi, and it goes on like this. Okay, so this is all for the day. Thank you. And tomorrow I'll record the live lecture, and then I'll put that. But today recording could not be done, and that's why I am putting this one. Thank you.